you've already done. And please, Amanda, I'm amazing. All right, y'all. So, as a holistic reminder of what we have done, we started our journey into informative speaking by first coming up with an understanding of what is an informative speech topic and what is it not. And we talked about the different categories for informative speaking. And from there, we were able to start to narrow down our focus to what specifically we wanted to discuss about that topic. And that's how we developed our specific purpose to inform my audience about, and then we inserted it in there. We started to learn that the way that we articulated that specific purpose was going to directly influence how our main points could be most effectively organized for audience understanding. So then we went on and we went forward to look at things like chronological, spatial, topical, cause and effect organization. Which one is going to make most sense, not only to the specific purpose, but then also to, of course, my audience, and which one is going to work best for how I plan and want to get my goal across. So you were able to develop a thesis from that. And now that we have our thesis, we know at least what we're going to be talking about in our class specifically, and then how we're going to do it. But now I need to start building out that material. How am I going to start talking about it? The good news is you already know a lot of this information. The reminder is, however, to go back and remember how to write as if we are delivering almost a book report. And I want to say that with the easiest ways of saying things. I think I talked about it a little bit last week, that rarely in college are we writing an informational paper, or rarely anymore have we been just taking on let me represent the information. Usually it's an argumentative paper. You're taking a stance on something. You're trying to prove your understanding of an idea. And so for this, we are really simply giving you a report of the happenings of what has already been established and what is going on. If you needed to give us the background information or tell us what is happening or what's going on, all of you were very capable and competent of doing that. And I'm going to assume that because you all, have done this pretty much in your social lives every day. If you talk to your friends about what you did this weekend, you gave them a comprehensive look. You probably told them in a pattern of order that made sense. You gave details, you used hand gestures, and you used your voice to make it come alive. Right? We're already used to these different types of informational speaking already and how to build out that material. But what we are going to do today and now going forward is we are going to start to provide a visual framework for what our speech is going to look like. And that is what we do with outlining. And so outlining, if you have had the opportunity already to start to look at what outlining is, speakers don't write papers. Instead, we write outlines. And we write outlines because it's going to help us, like it says here, test the scope of the content and make sure that we have logical relationships and that this is making sense. It also helps us to organize a message that the audience understands, and it also has particular balance to it so that we can see where maybe one area has a ton of information and another doesn't. It's well, why doesn't that? Let's start to see if these ideas, in fact, are not even correlating. But then also an outline allows us the opportunity to deliver our speeches more effectively. If you have an entire paragraph in front of you, or if any of you practiced with a piece of paper where you had everything written out, you know that it was hard to go back and find your place when you look down at the paper. Having an outline for both the outline that you turn into me as well as your speaking notes can help the individual guide themselves on the paper, see what ideas come next and flow it in that way without having to do a huge seek through. So it will help to foster that kind of connection and delivery with the audience. Organizing and outlining are two really important things, but the key point here is that you will have two different types of outlines. I am going to continuously talk about the preparation outline. If you're seeing here, the preparation outline is going to be every single thing that you intend to say in your speech. You are going to turn that preparation outline into me by the Sunday of your speaking week, and it is due for 50 points. I will have us do the skeleton outline, not only to make sure that you are set up for success in the logic and flow of your information, but also because I want to ensure that you can get those 50 points for the structure and for symbolizing correctly, for writing your internal citations correctly, etc. You will also have a speaker's outline. That outline I will never see, but what it is, again, one piece of paper, front and back, that is essentially your outline, but it only has keywords and phrases. Remember, those keywords and phrases are there to remind you of what you are speaking about. They're there to jog your memory about your ideas, that you don't have to necessarily memorize a speech. If you know it's coming up and you know about it, it's like, okay, eggs, now I can simply just start talking about the eggs that I've already planned and prepared for. The skeleton you turn into me is a skeleton of the preparation outline. A skeleton does not mean I'm going to write in like 2 words. Instead, it means we are going to write in full sentences, everything that we intend to say, and we're going to go through this, but make sure that the word skeleton doesn't make you think that then I'm just going to put in like 1 word. I will show you exactly how we'll write that out today. But the outline is one thing that we will, in fact, be going into to build out our speech. Once we have that outline and we can look at, okay, here's our visual framework, what I am going to require is for all of us to start to understand and start to seek out supporting ideas. Are you going to need to take every single thing from an outside source? No. I'm going to guess that 90% of you could write this entire speech without ever having to look at a piece of research because you already understand it or you're passionate about it because you know the topic, right? How you would start to talk about it and what you would start to do. But it is key for us to start to look at supporting materials. Supporting materials are things like examples, testimony, and statistics. Understanding how to utilize these supporting materials is very key, but additionally, when to use which one is going to be important as well. So I encourage you to do this supporting material visual watching and understand some of the ways that we can start to gather those materials, to incorporate them, and to utilize them within our speech. A different type of supporting material is also a visual aid. The visual aids are incredibly, and really what the most important thing that we remember is that visual aids are there to aid in the development of your speech. They should not take over your speech, and they shouldn't be the primary focus of detracting or taking away from. Instead, they only enhance. So you ask yourself, when does my audience need to be like engaged so it can potentially entertain them? Like, oh my gosh, this is keeping my focus. Or 2, how can I use this to keep clarity and to make the idea that I'm trying to describe as best as I can more clear? Because if your words aren't coming clear, or if it's something that you simply can't describe, or maybe one of the books that you have read says it better, then just use that and take that and paste it and use about that. So Fleeta asked a question about how long really the speech should be. And we spoke about this before, that in terms of length, it depends on how fast you speak, because what is 5 to 7 minutes? We do know an average time an average speaker is going to speak. There is a general assumption that there would be 1 page per minute. But when we also look at outlines, remember, everything is single spaced and then double spaced in between. So those pages aren't these huge ideas. And if we're taking a look, where is that? So if we see the sample outline here, and I provided you with a sample outline that we can look over, This one is 7 pages. If you note, the introduction is in block formation, and we'll talk about that introduction and conclusion in a bit, but don't worry about that for right now. But if you see how every single main point, or sorry, every symbol is single spaced, but in between each one is double spaced. So and how far those go in is also indentation. So I don't want you to think like, oh my gosh, it's 7 pages, single space of all this information. No, how much we're going to talk, 5 minutes, is going to be very small and very short. It just may look longer because of the spacing and the indentation. So if we did think 1 page per minute, think about 5 to 7 pages. If it's going over that, I like, for sure I would start to time myself after you get through that second main point anyways, just to start seeing how you're going. And like, even just reading through the main points, you can get an idea of where your timing is. Because if you're going to still need a minute for the introduction and then like 30 seconds for the conclusion, you can think about something like that. I'm going to actually download this and just put it up on the screen for us to take a look at whilst we get going here. So the other thing, and I just want to keep in mind, so y'all, what we also will go over, so those are the supporting materials. Like we were saying, we'll go over those supporting materials. Your visual aids, we'll talk a little bit about your introduction and conclusion. You'll need to do that a little bit more in advance. But here's citing sources out loud and choosing how to communicate their ideas. Last week, you were in the library or you did that assignment, you started to gather your research. So now we need to incorporate our ideas that we found from others into our speech. And how do we give them credit for that without disrupting the flow of information and material? That is what we talk about citing sources out loud. You are required to cite those out loud in your speech. So I'm going to hear 3 different sources with either a testimony or an example or a statistic, something that is going to aid in the development of your speech. And what that will all synthesize to this week is creating a rough main point assignment. So on Friday, you have a skeleton due. The skeleton, hopefully we will be able to write out together in a very, at least the good first parts of it today. Once that skeleton is approved, and you are more than welcome to email me that as soon as you want to this week, or even if you wanted to, we could write it together on Thursday, and then it's just done for you. So just like keep that in mind. But the skeleton, once you get that approved, then you can go forward and start to write one main point. So what we're going to do is build out one of our main points in a rough draft in the way that we believe it's going to, start to set us up for success. That one rough main point should have a citation included in it, so that I know you are going to be clear on how to not only use it in the speech, but then make sure that, it's set up correctly for how you would write it in the outline. So I'm going to go over those things, and I will hopefully demonstrate how that all fits together today. And then what I'm going to do here is open up this document. There we go. And I'm going to keep that Sally speaker there. And then we will, in fact, quote, I'm going to open something else up. So if you at all would like to, oh goodness gracious, y'all, what's happening? I have so many things open. Let me stop this. What I'm going to be going over here is the outlining handout to use during a lecture. It was one of those documents that is up. I'm going to put these two together so that we can see them on the screen. All right, y'all. So feel free to follow along, to take notes, ask any questions that you have. I am more than happy to be answering these. The important thing that you all note is that outlining how we are going to do it is not the way that your computer is going to do it. And the points that you earn, which, by the way, this is really one of the, and I don't want to call it a hoop, because I'll talk about what symbols in fact mean to this all. But one of these things that your grade is going to be based on is making sure that your symbolization and indentation is correctly done. So on this outlining sheet, everything that you will be graded on is listed here underneath, right? The A, the B, the C, the I, the la, and then we have all these other ideas that you will be graded on for the, so it's A through H are the things that you will be graded on in your outline. So I want to make sure that those are the things that you're understanding. And people often will just jump to conclusion because it's an outline and they think, well, it's just an outline, I'll just submit it. But part of communication studies and public speaking is having a communication system that we understand. So every single discipline has specific like language that is privy or that is specific to that field of study. When you go into work, for example, I mean, I used to wait tables forever. And if you remember from our language lesson, there's specific language that is specific to the industry that individuals on the outside may not for sure understand unless somebody was to explain that to them. And so I'm sure that within all of your experiences or existences, you come to understand a little bit about what that's saying. So we will talk a bit about how our language of symbols in this outline is specific to our discipline and why understanding that is important when writing these speeches. So the preparation outline, y'all, as a friendly reminder, it is everything the speaker intends to say in a speech. So if I'm saying everything that the speaker intends to say in a speech, so what if perchance, Russell, are you there?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. So Russell, what does it mean, like everything? And what if you don't do it? Because what's this word right here, Russell?
Intense.
Absolutely. You intend to, but if you don't get around to it, is it a fail?
No.
No, absolutely. This is simply your intention. I can't even sing it. Okay, Russell, thank you. I'm sorry. I was thinking about this is my intention, but I can't because let's be honest, that guy ruined it for all of us and now we can't sing anymore, right? Do you get what I'm saying, Russell? Damn you are, Kelly. Okay. So many things. I mean, it's like, it's horrible and it's disgusting. We don't even need to talk about all the things, but also that was, you know, I had an R. Kelly song as one of my karaoke go-tos. Now what do I do at karaoke? He ruined so many things, so many lives. That's another whole other Oprah. Let's go ahead and look back at this. You will not be marked down for anything that you do not get to. No more, no, that's it, the ignition. Yes, so you will not be marked down for anything that you don't get to in your speech. Or let's say you wrote it one way and you said it a different way. That, I mean, is my whole happiness. If you can talk about a topic without having to be perfectly on script, it shows me that you know it, right? So don't worry if you don't say it correctly or as it is written. This is simply how you intend it to go. There are times when I will maybe give you a 5-minute hand signal and you've only gotten through your first main point. That means you're probably going to need to drop some stuff. So it's important. Your audience looks at you and they have the question. Remember with extemporaneous speaking, if you need to answer something or maybe put something else in and it's not in there, it's okay. That's just the idea of where you were going. And for me to have this and see that you in fact understand how to organize and logically lay out the idea. So everything that you're going to be graded on, I'm going to go ahead and look at these first two. So label and write the general purpose, central idea, and main idea statement. Label the introduction, body, transitions, and conclusions. We are going to be setting this outline up in MLA format. And what that means is you do not have a title page for MLA papers. And so what I will do here is I'm simply going to show us a new document. And you can all see the new document, correct? I'm gonna have to hide these. No, you can't see the new document. All right, hold on. I got you. Thank you for telling me that you can't see it. Ah, okay, cool.
Professor?
Yeah.
Wait, so the rough draft, we have just two bodies, right? Which is like the two topics we're gonna be mentioning, correct? With the A, B, and C.
Yeah, so the rough draft, are you talking about the main point rough draft?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, you only do one of them for this assignment. So either main point 1 or main point 2.
Oh, so we're not supposed to do like, because I did for the body I put mental and then the other one is physical.
Right. So, and I'm fine with that. So you're talking about the skeleton outline. So there's 2 different assignments this week. The first one is the skeleton. And so that's what I'm going over now. And we're going to talk about how to outline in general so that you can very easily write the skeleton for the assignment. And then once I get done with that, I'm going to go into developing your main point, number 1, and how we'll take the skeleton and we'll start to build on that to develop our ideas that you will be also turning in that rough draft by Sunday. So it's only going to be of like the mental or it'll only be the physical.
Oh, so we can't choose 2, it only has to be 1?
For real life, when you give the speech, you will have 2 main points.
Oh, okay.
For the assignment, you're only required to submit 1.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It's just, it's a lot of assignments. I don't want you to have to do the whole thing. Okay, yeah, but you can't. All right, y'all. If you want to follow along with me and start to create your paper, you may. This would essentially be how it should be turned in, your skeleton, so we can do the assignment together. I'm going to put my name because that's me, but you go ahead and put your name. Your first and your last name. Yeah? Then, and if you all can, make sure that your settings are on single spaced. That is going to help you greatly. So I have my document single spaced. Do not double space it. It will create a lot of work in the long run. Then in MLA standards, it calls for my name or your instructor's name, whoever that is. I'm going to double space for myself by clicking 1, 2. Then I'm going to list the class. So it always goes the class next, and you list the class in full with the number. And then finally, you're going to provide us with the date. And it's typically the date that the assignment is due. So that would be, what is that? What's today? 15, 16. My calendar again is so it would be Friday 19th. So it's going to be, you'll put it with the date first. I use a comma. European typically does not use a comma. Whatever you feel the spirit move you. But every single time, this is how your heading should be for an MLA 1. Then, secret friends, what we are going to do is we are going to insert, if you can, I usually just like to go to insert a page number. That's how I do it. But you can do it however you want. I do the page number at the top of the page as a header, on the right-hand side because that's where it's called for. And what I usually will do right before the header is I will simply open this up. Oops. And then in front of it, I will put my last name. And sorry, it's not all in bold. It would be like, and it'll be your last name, not mine. You know that, right? Oh. There we go. And we do that. And then what you're going to do is you will simply highlight that and make sure that everything is in the exact same font, because you do not want, because the font up here will always be a default as compared to what this is. Any questions so far? Now I know that my next page, when I go into it, is already going to have a header on it with my name and page 2. And so that's why for your Works Cited page, that will be something to help. Any questions so far? All right, I'm going to go ahead and then I'm going to double space again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to center my document. And right now I'm just going to make a space that says catchy title. So feel free to write that. If you don't have a catchy title, get one, but don't make it informative speech, or don't make it speech about COVID-19 impacts, right? Then it gives it away again. There we go. After my catchy title, we will.
I'm kind of confused.
Okay,
Wait.
go ahead.
How should I make the title? I'm kind of confused. Kids shutdown. Can I put that? Is that fine?
Well, it would be something like, oh, what about the kids? What happened to the kids? Does that make sense? So
actually.
You would make it a catchy title, like something that relates to the topic, but maybe gets us intrigued a little bit, like a fun title that lets us know what the purpose is without really giving it away. Does that make sense? Try your best to come up with something catchy, but if you don't find anything, it's okay. Most important thing is just get the outline down.
Okay, I got one.
Okay, cool. Yay! Awesome. So then what you all are going to do here is we go in and we start to put our approved information. You'll put your general purpose, double space, specific purpose. I bring that down. Right, so let's just go back to this one. All right. Now let's go and check out, and I'm simply going to cruise this over here. Let me do a desktop share. Hide that and look here. Okay. All right, are you seeing the outline page and this Sally speaker page? All right, I'm going to assume that that is correct, that you can see these two together, hopefully. But if you've seen, yeah,
we can.
Yay, thanks. All right, y'all. So we have the general purpose, specific purpose, and central idea. That's all right here. So don't worry about that type of language. I don't know why that's there. This is the MLA formatting. That's awesome. And now we need to label our introduction, body, transitions, and conclusions. So what I'm going to do with my document is I'm simply going to leave a space holder for my introduction. We write our introduction as the last thing to our speech. If you've started to try to write your speech and you've started with the introduction, don't. You start with the main points. You already have your thesis statement. Remember, the thesis is the last sentence of your introduction. You're not going to say this part. That's just for reference. But that is really all you need to know right now to develop the body of the speech anyway. The introduction introduces what the speech is going to be about. And if we haven't finished writing the speech, we don't really know what it's going to be about. So I'd say wait for the introduction because it'll come to you on where to go. So label that for right now and note that for the purpose of the main point rough draft assignment due Sunday, you do not need to write an introduction or a conclusion. What you will do is then continue to label. You're going to put the body and label it. And then we will start with our first transition. And then we will also want to, we will of course, like however many transitions we have is dependent upon how many main points we have, because I know I need a transition before every single main point. And then I finally need a conclusion. So we will put that there for the time being. So now what we've done is we've gone ahead and labeled the introduction, body, transition, and conclusion. So check, I am done with that, which is great. The next thing that we are going to do is look at our pattern of symbolization and indentation. So if we're talking about symbolization, hold on one second. The first thing you're going to want to do, like I said, is that our symbolization is going to be different than that of what your computer is going to want you to do. I have provided for you in the module I believe it's a link on how to turn off the formatting so that it will not automatically outline for you. There's nothing worse than like putting a 1 and then an A and then it doing it for you and automatically starting. Instead, there is the formatting to, in fact, typically it will pop up when we do that, but I provided it for you in there. If it did start to, let's say, outline in some capacity, you can always go to none, or there will be a, well, let me just see.
Amanda, so basically that's how our skeleton's supposed to look like with the transition, right? We don't have to write anything for introduction or body, just for the transition, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, and the conclusion, that's for a later time, right? Or do we have to write that as well?
Nope, no introduction or conclusion needed.
And how many sentences are we supposed to have for this transition? Only one, right?
1, yeah.
One, and then if we're having another main point, we add another sentence for that transition, correct?
Yes, so like, right. And yeah, I'll go through that one with you for sure.
Okay.
Good job.
Okay, now I'm starting to understand a little bit more. I was a little bit confused, but now I'm understanding a little bit more.
Good, I'm so glad. We're right here. You keep asking those questions. All right. Now, for each of you, and this will be for the informative and the persuasive and every other speech that you give, you know, in the communication studies discipline, is that we utilize Roman numerals and different other symbols in order to communicate our ideas. So the way that, what are symbols? Well, symbols are something that represents something else. I know, it's crazy smart, right? So something that represents something else. So if I say like, right? Let me do this one. So if I give you for example, Michael, if I do this, what does it communicate to you?
that you're happy.
Okay, why is it
Or
communicating?
number two.
Okay, Danny read it, or sorry, not Danny, Michael read it as the number 2. So that's an interesting one. What if I was standing out in front of the United Nations?
Peace.
What if I'm at a USC game? I don't know if you all know, but this means V for victory, and it's what they do, fight on, right? Fight on. You see somebody fight on. The symbol stands for something else, depending on the context, the individual of whom you're communicating to, right? So like, if I said this to a group of Trojans, they would all be like, oh, fight on. The fact that if I put my daughter in front of a birthday cake and said to, that context is going to communicate to the audience based upon what they know, that it's probably her second birthday, right? We can assume that. So the same way that symbols really depend upon context and about understanding to whom you were speaking to, the same thing is true for the symbols of our document that we're going to be creating. The symbols that we use are going to represent ideas. Our symbols represent an idea. What does that mean? That means one idea. So every symbol is going to tell me that this is a new idea. So the way that the symbols works then is that all of your main points are going to be the Roman numeral itself. So whatever you have written in that thesis statement, remember that we're going to be going into that concept or that idea. But the main point cannot stand on its own, because especially if we are giving an example, we need to expand upon those ideas, or we need to maybe clarify what we are talking about. And so when the main point needs to be explained, like each of you are doing, we start to bring in a new idea or a new symbol. These are called subpoints, and they are indicated by the capital letters. I am going to say now that each of you will more than likely have no more than 3 subpoints inside each of your main points, because they will be developed, these subpoints. They're topics in essence of their own that are going to help explain that main point. But to have too many is going to develop that main point into a place that I don't think you're going to have time for. So I always say between 2 to 3 main points, meaning that you will have an A and a B and a C at most for each main point. But when the subpoint is describing something and it hasn't been able to fully do it and it needs more help and more backup, then we have to call in a new symbol, because it's a different idea. It's one that's working to support that subpoint. And so what I do is then I bring in another symbol. So if you're starting to see a pattern, we have Roman numeral, letter. So it's number, letter, and then we're going to alternate again with a new symbol. And so now we are going to use a number. Well, we've used Roman numerals, so now we're going to use the number 1, right? And number 1s, 2s, 3s, these are what we call sub points. I know that it falls 2 below sub, the main point. So what does sub mean? It means to fall below, right? Submarine, subordinate, if we think about that. So it falls below those ideas. So we utilize these subpoints to explain this subpoint, which is working to explain the main point, which is all working to support the specific purpose. But let's say the sub point needs some help and some description and some information. Well, then we're going to go ahead and go with our next symbol. We've already done a capital A and we've already done a number 1. So if we are alternating number, letter, we are now going to find a new symbol to represent the next phase of ideas. And these are going to be called your sub points, and they are indicated by lowercase letters. And so the sub point, its job is to describe the sub point, which is all here to describe the sub point, which is here to describe the main point. And so what we start to see then also is, let's say the sub point needs some help and it needs some backup and it needs some description. We need to go one step further, right? So it's Roman numeral, letter, numbers, lowercase letter. And now what am I going to do? What do I have? Well, I'm going to use lowercase Roman numerals, and I'm going to start to use the lowercase I as our first starting point of our sub points. If you need to go further, yes, in fact, you can. And that's when we're going to go into double letters. But I'm going to say it's sub to the 5th point. I'm not quite sure that you are going to need to go in that deep. Here is something important to note about these subs. What you see here is that they fall on an angle. Each of them are indented from each other. This is what gives us the visual framework of seeing what ideas are supported, what ideas maybe need some information or description. Perchance also, if you're starting to see how this is written, you will see that it allows for us to indent for the purpose of delivery, so that when I'm looking down at the paper, I can see what ideas are coming next in an easier way, in an easier manner. Now, I am going to put this into real terms, but I want us to take a look, or actually, let me see here real quickly. Give me 1 second. Look at something. Grab this.
Wait, so we have to have that all included for the skeleton?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
We're supposed to have all that included for the skeleton?
The symbols?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
So what I will show you all, let me do this. So if you go back into the sample, right, or the handout of the requirements, so we wanted to use a consistent pattern of symbolization and indentation. So you will always have that main point, sub points, right, sub points. How far you go in is going to determine the amount of sub points that you have. There is not a cut standard. It is simply about your topic, and it's about your audience. How far do you need to go in? How much do you need to describe? Do you need to explain more in particular areas and not others? So it's going to be really up to you. And I can't tell you how many 1s or 2s or A's or B's, et cetera, that you're going to use. But I can say that your symbolization should follow the same pattern. Like it says here, for every sentence, there is a new symbol. And everything must be written in full sentences. So if you're seeing over here in the sample outline, it looks like the one that we have created, right? It has a catchy title, general purpose, specific purpose, thesis statement, and your introduction. Then it goes in here with our first main point. And then as you will see, there is only one sentence per symbol. That's because if an idea equals a symbol, you cannot have 2 ideas on one symbol, because that's 2 for the 1. Doesn't make sense. So instead, you want to make sure that every time you put an ending punctuation mark, you then are doing a, what is it? Double space between each symbol, or idea. And I say double space between each symbol. And let me show you this on the sample. Here. So if you were saying that every single time on the sample, you have a full sentence, every time there's an ending punctuation mark, a new symbol begins. And when that new symbol begins, we want to make sure that we are double spacing between the symbols, but the sentences themselves are single spaced. So see how this is single spaced, this A, sorry, everybody. But in between, I have double spaced and left that there so that you can start to see the differentiation of where the ideas are. Does anybody have any questions about that double space, single space idea? Yeah.
So when we're going in and formatting that, how would we go about formatting, having to where when we are just typing, it will give us a single space, but when we hit enter, it'll give us that double space?
It won't.
It won't. It's just something we've got to go in and manually do.
So it's like every time you push period, just push return.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's like the easiest way to do it rather than, because when you have to go back in and then
Yeah.
shrink it all, that's shrinking the whole thing rather than doing that twice. If that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let me go ahead. I'm going to share the desktop again. I don't know if you're just looking at yourselves. Let's go ahead. So what I do want to do is, are you seeing the outlining for?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So you're seeing this outlining one. So what we did go over was the idea that, yes, we need the consistent pattern of symbolization and indentation, knowing that every time we put a period, we enter or return twice and start a new symbol. How do we know what symbol we're starting? Well, it doesn't always have to go A1, AIA. Of course, that could be the possibility, but I may not need to switch to a supporting idea because maybe I am simply expanding on the idea that I'm already talking about. And in that case, I want to start a new subpoint altogether. It doesn't even need description. So like here, if it says main point and then I did a subpoint and then I went into subpoint B and then subpoint B had a lot of description, that's, fine. Again, I'm going to put this in lay terms, but simply keeping in mind those symbolizations and indentations and how far you will go will just depend upon you. Remember, for every sentence, there's a new symbol. Everything is going to be written in a full sentence. That means that there is a capital to start your speech. There's punctuation to end your speech, and there's some kind of like verb subject combination. And the speech title, which you all know, the catchy title there. So I am going to open back up the other page that we were looking at here and start to create a little bit of something based upon the speech that we have up here. Here is a key. So for all of y'all, if you have your thesis there, let's work on writing out our transitions together and then starting in with our first main point. I'm going to write you 2 pieces of information to think about, and then we'll go through it. Transition So if you can keep the idea in mind that your transition, let's start off by looking at the history of Santa Monica College. Oh, Amanda. All right. So I have here a signpost that lets me know what's happening. And then we are going to be going into our first main point, the history of Santa Monica College. You do not need to add in your centralite or that specific purpose anymore to get to know me better. Look at the history of Santa Monica College so you can know more about it. You could always say that if you wanted, but it is not required for you to include it. But I have put a period. So now I know that I must go on and do something else. So I'm going to double space and I'm going to start my first main point. The main point is the overviews, what those subpoint goals are. So if I'm going to be talking about the history, I need to take a second and start to think, well, then what about the history do I want to speak about? Ideally, each of you would go back to that graphic organizer that I had you use and start to look at those sub parts of potentially that main point that you are looking at. And if you haven't done that yet, you may want to go back and take those bubbles and potentially brainstorm about the main points and what types of pieces of information should be outlined and organized. So for me, because I am looking at the history indicates to me that I could organize these subpoints in a particular way. Because subpoints can also have a logical flow of information, much like that of chronological, spatial, and topical. So if I'm first talking about the history of Santa Monica College, my A, my B, and my C could be organized. What do you think? According to direction, top to bottom? I would say it could even be done. Yep, that's right, everybody. Like I could do it a little bit chronologically, even if I wanted to. But let's go ahead and say that I know let's get rid of this. I'm gonna go with the one that I usually do. It's gonna be super exciting. Something like that, whatever. I'm not even gonna get excited. I don't know. I'm making it so much. All right. My first transition. So what I'm going to call on y'all. What I'm going to have you do is just play along so that we can get around to it. If you don't know the answer, it does not matter. Let's just try to go for it. So
Wait,
huh?
sorry. So that's what we have to have for, because I'm kind of getting confused with the sub and all the, and that's what we have to have for a skeleton, right? The general purpose, specific purpose, thesis statement, body, we can leave it blank, right?
Yeah.
And then transition, which is like that one right there you got. And then we have another transition, right? That's if we have like, depending on how much main points we have, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then for this assignment, we just have to have the transition, right? But we have to have it in a format way, right? Right?
Okay, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to go back and share. I think that what I need to do is share something else with you. Check this out really quickly. So Danny, have you read through the the assignments yet?
Oh, I saw the skeleton one, and also I already know how to do the rough draft one.
Okay.
And at the end at the end we have to have the work site, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I already got that one. Actually, I'm almost done with that one. Almost working on that one. I just need to come up with transition, and then I already have it all MLA formatted. I just need to do the work site and transition. But
Oh,
I'm just
You've already
confused.
written out your main points, so I don't need to really go over this.
Yeah, I'm just really confused on the skeleton one, because I don't know. I know I had to have it in a format way, but
Why can't I format this? Can you all see, have you been able to see
oh
this?
no, I wasn't able to open that too. Like I finally started understanding the skeleton when you started showing us.
That would make a lot more sense now, wouldn't it? Let me do a quick search, y'all. All right, everybody, how about this? This is what I am going to do. I am going to finish this part of our lecture with our A's, our B's, and our C's to write this outline. Because the important thing is understanding really just the idea of outlining first. I'm going to talk about how to go through those patterns of symbolization using real words and concepts so that we know just how to do it ourselves. Try to throw away the idea of sub point, but keep these two things in mind. Is this a new idea or is it supporting the one before? That's what you need to know. Is this a new idea or is it supporting the one before? After I finish that part of the outline organization, I'll pull up the sample skeleton document. I'll go in and find it. And after our little 10-minute break, I'll show you the skeleton assignment and then how we could, and what all that will look like. Does that make sense to y'all? All right, so let me finish this part and then we'll get into it. So play along with me if you all can. I'm going to write our first, and again, if you don't know it, it does not matter. I'm going to write this first transition. Let's first gather the ingredients necessary, and I'm going to NECESSARI, to make a chocolate chip cookie. Okay, period. So that period means I need to start my symbols. And now I know that this is going to be my first main point anyways. But my first main point is basically going to be what? What do I know my entire first main point is going to be about? Andrea, can you tell me?
What was the question again?
What is my first main point going to be about?
The ingredients necessary.
Yeah, so let's tell the audience that in a newer way. Specifically, I mean, how many ingredients are there? Ooh, there's a lot of ingredients, right?
Yeah.
So we could do something like, there are 12, 15 ingredients we need, something like that. But we'll probably won't do that. But we could do something like all right, so if you've never made a chocolate chip cookie before, it doesn't matter. Just kind of go with it and feel the spirit move you. So Andrea, again, and you'll start us off. if I wanted to describe my first ingredient, am I going to put that on this number 1 as a Roman numeral?
Wouldn't you, I'd say yeah.
So I just say the first ingredient.
And then start with the wet ingredients.
Like that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go back and look really quickly as a friendly reminder to that outlining handout. And I'm so sorry, I just pull this down like this, that if we were looking, not that one, not that one. There we go. So remember the guidelines. There is only, for every sentence, there's a new what? Andrea?
Symbol.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we have our document here, wherever that went to, there it is. What are we going to do here? Because that's at the end of a sentence. Every sentence is a new symbol. So we need a new what? Symbol. I'm going to take this and I'm going to indent and I'm going to put my A. The first ingredients are wet ingredients. Does that make sense, Andrea?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
And then you'd go for B for the dry ingredients.
oh, nice. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, and we'll talk about that one. But we first need to talk about these wet ingredients, right? We need to describe those. We need to expand them. Because if I was talking to an audience, I wouldn't be like, so you need wet ingredients, and then just move on. They'd be like, what do you mean, water? Right? So Danny, for example, do you know one wet ingredient you would use?
I don't know if this is part of it, but I'll probably go with milk.
How about maybe eggs?
Oh yeah, eggs too.
Okay, cool. Yay, eggs. So what do I do next if I want to start talking about that we need eggs? I know that I need to single space, start a new symbol, build on the A.
I think you have to build on the A.
The A has, okay, so like right here.
No, oh sorry. I feel like that's gonna go with the sub.
Okay, so I'm going to make a space. I'm going to make a double space, and then what symbol is it going to be? Is this what?
A numeral?
Like
1?
Absolutely. Right. So I'm going to indent this and I'm going to put a 1, and I'm going to do so because this 1, right, is a type of ingredient, and that's all this is. The first ingredient or wet ingredient. A, you will need 2 eggs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Fabiola, what is another ingredient that we may want to talk about or go in? Do you know any other ones? Fabiola, right there. Okay, if you can't participate, it's okay. Fleeta, do you know any other wet ingredients?
So you need oil for cookies?
Yeah, right?
Butter.
Butter, yeah,
Yeah,
vanilla.
I mean, it's
Right, no, we do.
semi-solid, semi-liquid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we need like vanilla and we need,
I think oil, if I'm not, I know you did it for a cake. I'm not sure about cookies.
Yeah, you could, I think it's Crisco for the cookies or like butter, but butter could still be a wet ingredient. So if you wanted to, which one do you want to do? Give me one.
We'll do butter.
Okay.
Miss, sorry, I didn't hear. I was having trouble to hearing you. That's
No
why.
worries. You can do our next one. How's that sound?
Okay. I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Okay, so we're going to double space and then I'm going to go in here, Fleeta, and I'm going to put an A. Is that correct?
Okay, so now I'm starting to get it. So the numeral, the numeral, sorry. The sub is basically adding more information to what you're talking about in the A, right?
There you go, bud.
Okay. And does it matter how much you're supposed to put, or depending on how much information you want to put more?
That's it. Yeah. Just how much information you need to do, how much you need to go into, depending upon your audience, right? So how much support do we need depending on your audience? So you also need butter. Do I need to explain butter to my audience?
Probably.
Does your audience know what butter is?
Oh, I don't know.
I think that we do. We all know what a stick of butter is at this point in our life.
Oh yeah.
We don't need to describe it. So it's just looking at sentences like that. Do I need to go in further? But Fleeta, while we still have you, is my symbolization correct?
I think.
Wait for Fleeta. Sorry, Danny. Just give me one more
sorry.
second. No, that's okay, Fleeta.
It looks like it because you have the Roman numeral up top, the capital letter, and then the actual everyday number, and then the lowercase a.
Sure. So I
And
mean, the
sub,
symbol
sub, sub.
looks super pretty, but remember that I would only put this A if I was explaining the,
Okay, yeah. So that's what I was kind of concerned about, because wouldn't the stick of butter still be considered wet ingredient? So you wouldn't necessarily need the lowercase a. You would put it with all of the 2 eggs, the butter, the vanilla.
what symbol would that be? There you go.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then, so then, Danny, if you will, for my last one, I will go, you will find, so Danny, what, is that correct?
No.
Why is it not correct? It would only be correct if,
If it was part of the A, which is explaining the ingredients, but this one's actually going into more details, which goes along with 1 and 2.
well,
So it's
go,
gonna be 3.
does it go along with, is it supporting the butter?
No.
No, the only reason I would put an A is if I need to explain the butter. Otherwise, you're right. It's simply another type of ingredient. So I'm going to say, is this a new idea or is it building on the one before it? Simply a new idea, right? Doesn't need to be supported. Let me say though, so Fabiola, come on back.
Yes.
I want to describe vanilla. What symbol am I going to use to describe the vanilla?
Vanilla. You could just say it's a sweet.
Oh, and I don't worry about writing a sentence, but instead, what symbol am I going to use if I want to describe the vanilla?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Like what symbol? What do you mean about the symbol?
These are symbols. So Roman numeral A, 1, lowercase a, I. So if I need to describe the vanilla, would I put a 4 here to explain it?
Yes.
Okay. That is where we need to look at it. The 1, the 2, the 3, these are all ingredients.
Oh, yeah.
If I want to explain the vanilla, I'm going to need to start a symbol that tells me, oh, this idea is actually supporting this idea here. It's not a new idea altogether. I personally love to add extra vanilla. So if you have one more teaspoon left, go ahead and throw it in. There we go. Does this make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay. So now what we've done is we've gone in and we've started to describe something, and we know how to build that into the idea or the concept. So now let's say that I said something like so. Let's see. So what do you think I'm going to do? What does it sound like is going to come next?
Professor.
Yeah.
So we had to have all this for a skeleton, right? Or is this just an example?
This is how to outline.
Oh, so this is the one. This is how we're gonna have it for the rough, right? The rough main ideas.
Yeah. Overall, I want you to remember that every single thing that you are doing right now is building on your final speech.
Ooh.
So if this makes sense, you've already written this, right?
Yeah.
Then what I have you do is I have you lay down a skeleton. Then after you lay down your skeleton, you go back in and you add in your details. And then at the end of adding in all the details and all the main points, you turn that full preparation outline in for your submission for the informative speech. So it's essentially 4 different assignments that will all combine to making the one assignment. You'll do the thesis, you do the skeleton, you'll build out one main point, and then by the end, it will all be built out and turned in.
Okay, so right now the only thing for the informative, the main idea right now, we don't have to have the conclusion though, right? Not yet.
No.
Okay, and the skeleton is basically the first thing that we're gonna submit before we get to the rough main idea, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why the skeleton is mostly like just getting our things structured and just having our transition there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, now it's starting to make sense. Yeah, now I'm starting to get it now.
Okay, good.
And then for the rough main idea, we're supposed to have it works cited or not yet?
You will put the works cited, yes, and you will put the one source that you use in that rough draft in a works cited.
Oh, okay.
So
And
let's
that
talk
one,
about that right now.
okay.
For example, I heard the tip about extra vanilla from an expert years ago and never forgot the way she put it. I'm doing this in a very long, about way. But if I am going to go in and maybe talk about this expert, this is where I am going to expand upon an idea or potentially give you an outside piece of advice or opinion. So let me show you here, if you remember that outlining in turn for our, what's it called? I don't know why I'm saying that. All right. You must cite your sources inside your outline, out loud in your speech, and in the MLA references page attached to the last page, I should say, to the last page of your outline. So in your outline and the way that things should be heard in your speech and the way that we write things can be done in the same way. And let me say, I say this because when we write a paper, we will traditionally try to put in other people's words without disrupting the sound of our content or our ideas, whereby we can write, let's say, and I'm going to say this like silly, but let's just go with, sorry. So if we're doing something like, so the woman was struck down with vengeance and spite, and then we wanted to keep going, her vengeance, whatever. In writing, the author is crediting who they're speaking to, and that person who is reading is able to see that the sentence in front of it, even maybe if it wasn't quoted directly, would have come from that place, from within whatever that document is, page 54. And so that is what this internal citation is and what it looks like. However, according to MLA standards, if you state the necessary information up front, you don't need to do a parenthetical representation, only if there is, in fact, a page number. So let me show you what that would look like. It would be like, so what we have here is instead putting the information up front and allowing the audience to know where that information came from, since they are not going to be reading that information. And that's a real key part, because our audience isn't going to be able to read or to be able to see. So to just cite something parenthetically in your outline isn't necessarily covering you from the plagiarism. We must also hear that you are citing other people. And a key way to do that would be to build in the fundamental elements that are necessary to be talked about out loud. So when we look to, one more time, the handout here, we want to start thinking about what types of pieces of information we want to include. And your reading this week is going to talk about that. that really deciding who my audience is going to most understand and what they are most going to be listening for in terms of your research. So for example, in your class, Amanda Whitten just citing the person is not going to more than likely be enough. Unless you are privy and very familiar with the medical field, that name has no bearing on the information shared. And so the important key pieces of information that you can gather are the author, the author's title, the publication, the article title, and the year. If you can gather these particular pieces of information and reflect them before you give the outside testimony example statistic, it's ideal not only for the purpose of speaking the citation out loud in a way that is comfortable, and also lets your audience know where that information came from, that it's credible, that it's reliable, that you've used outside research, that they can go find it if they need to. But also it takes away the necessity to worry about writing it effectively in your outline if you've already written it how you would say it. Does that make sense to everyone? So when you find a piece of detail or information, setting up your details with those key pieces of information will simply be an easier way, or just a little format for you to go about writing something. So I am going to, because I've already used, I'm on number, letter, and then I know that I want to describe the tip about the vanilla and how she put it. So who is this person? And I'm going to say something like, back in 2007, I watching, let's say, oh, you're not seeing what I'm typing, everybody. Can totally just, let that out if that's true. Here we go. So sorry. This one, let me put it back on the desktop and then we can all see it. So we say something like, back in 2007, I was watching acclaimed chef Rachel Ray on the Food Network Bake Off channel when she said, nobody ever won a food challenge using just the right amount of, never won a cookie challenge using just the right amount of vanilla. And now I don't need to add anything. One, because it's a TV show, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at the necessary pieces of information. If I said the author, the author's title, the publication, the year, the article title, right? I do not need to give the article title or the article title because there is not one. It's a TV show, but I guess that would be the Bake Off challenge, right? So back in 2007, now I've contextualized this for the year. The publication is the Food Network, so that's good. The author's title, so who is this person? It's Rachel Ray, and I put here acclaimed chef. So I gave her some credibility. And so now I know that I'm really good to go, and I've explained that in the way that I need to. Does everybody understand a little bit of what this pattern starts to look like? All right. If I wanted to continue along, Hallie, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah,
Excuse
yeah.
me, sorry, I'm getting over a cold.
No, that's okay. I'm ready to go into the dry ingredients. So I am going to go ahead and put a 4 here. Is that correct?
Wouldn't you start with a B?
You're right. Why would I start with a B?
We finished the wet ingredients, so to start the new topic, we would just go to the next letter.
Yeah, we know that all of our subpoints are going to be these A's and the B's, right? Now let's gather the dry ingredients, right? And so we'll do something like gathering the dry ingredients, and that's good. And then you'll continue to build out. We'll need sugar. Oh, this is a fun one. Okay, so Hallie, thank you for that. Isabella, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're gonna need sugar, and I'm gonna go ahead and put this one here. We'll need 2 types of sugar. So what am I going to do next?
Add a sub.
I am. What am I gonna do? A 2 to describe the first type?
No.
Okay. What symbol do I use? If I'm talking about the 2 types, I don't want to go on to the same idea. I need to support this one. So it does need a sub. So I've done B. So it's a letter. Now it's a number. And so this should probably be another number.
I.
And then-
Yes. Oh. Yeah. An A.
There you go. Yeah, we'll just start it there. There you go. A. You'll need brown sugar. And then what would I put here? I would give a 1 if I was
Yeah.
doing the other type.
An I or
Okay, so tell me why that may not work.
oh well, because they're still the same. Those are both types of sugar, so they're still in the same.
I would only
main
use, yeah, I would only use this little I if I was describing what?
right. The brown sugar.
Good job. Woo-hoo. Perfect. Cool. So going back to, and thank you so much for participating on that. Going back to your citation here, this is what I'm going to be using. And this was the question for the example, like this week, right? So let's say, Danny, this week, you use 1 citation. It happens to be this Rachel Ray one. When you're done, you will simply just come down and make a works cited page with only that Rachel Ray one.
Okay. How many works cited are we supposed to have? Like, what's the bare minimum? Not. I just want
3.
to know.
3.
Like, how much are we supposed to have?
3.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. No problem. You will need, I don't know, I don't want to do butter, but like what else? Sugar, chocolate chips, right? Etc. So that's how it would go. But then if we were on our way to the next, of course, we would need a transition. And we would say now that we have gathered our And what we could do something about the baking, we could say something like baking a chocolate chip cookie takes 3 important steps to remember. And now, for example, Jesse, are you there? Okay, let's see. Michael, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so for example, Michael, if we're looking at baking chocolate chip cookies takes 3 important steps to remember. This is my next main point. What do you think my subpoints are going to be? Read the sentence. Baking a chocolate chip cookie takes 3 important steps to remember. What would you expect to be the next thing to come out of my mouth?
Wearing oven mitts, maybe.
Now, so here we go. We would never write wearing oven mitts.
Oh,
As we need to put it in
full
context
sentence.
in a sentence. There we go. So if we know it takes 3 steps, we can set up our ideas with signposts, allowing our audience to follow along, using something as simple as like the first step is to ensure your own safety at all, right? Maybe wearing oven mitts would be one of those things. Right, something like that.
Okay.
Who knows? We could do something like that.
Okay.
But then if I was going on my second step, I would use the same thing. And then you could put it in fuller sentences. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. What if I use the same, so are you seeing this on the paper, everybody? You did? Okay. What if I was using the same thing? If I wanted to use the same story, the same TV show, and if I wanted to reference it and use a word that somebody said, what would I do? Do I need to say all that information over again? No. What I would say instead is in the same Food Network challenge mentioned before, another chef right? I could do something like that so that I don't have to state all the information again, but I've let my audience know that I'm referring to it and how it's going. Does that make sense to you all if you were going to do it a second time and how to refer to it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. One of the really great things that at least I like on here, and let me, hold on, I'm gonna stop this. Let me shrink this down a little bit.
Professor Amanda,
Uh-huh.
so no matter what, for each step that we taught, it has to be only one sentence, right? We can't make like 2. It has to be only one.
One sentence,
Okay,
one idea per, and that's something that I was going to say as well. Let's just say, for the fun of it. Oh, I don't know why I was doing that. If I pulled up a website, I don't even know.
Wait, one more question. Sorry for the bother. So I already came up with my transition because I was following how you were doing it, and then right now the only thing I need to do is because I already came up with 3 main ideas, which is mental and physical health. I just need to do like the three the A, B, and C, and then also the subs as well with it. But I'm gonna submit. I'm gonna work on that today. But that's pretty much it for the skeleton one, right?
Yeah, I was gonna go and grab that sample for you all in a second. So give me 1 second, I'll grab the sample and then you can take a break. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Okay, let me show you this one other thing here really quickly, and then I'll try to grab the sample and then we'll take a break. This is the only other little activity I wanted to do. So for example, I just took this from the SMC website. For example, and I'm going to take this out. Let's look at this. B. Today, SMC leads the nation in transferring students to the prestigious University of California system, a record unbroken for over 25 years. This doesn't have a lot of great things, but okay. Never mind. I'm not going to worry about doing that. The reason that I'm doing that, though, is to let you know that if you needed to write this out in paragraph format because that's more comfortable for you, then do so. Free flow your ideas. Go back in, and then you can outline it from there. Every time that there is a new idea, you simply put a 1 and an A and a B, and you just continue to go through like so. So if that feels more comfortable to you, you can go through and lay out your ideas. The pickle about that is that you more than likely will start to write it like you're writing a paper. And the fun part about outlining is that it allows you to really take it sentence by sentence. It allows you to get the ideas in your body, and it allows you to shape those specific sentences to how you would, in fact, say them out loud. Give me 1 hot second to look through really quickly for this sample. And why don't actually we do that? Why don't you go ahead and take a break? We'll come back at 1:32 and I'll show you this sample. And we can go through it of the skeleton, and then we can talk a little bit more about your other assignment, the main point assignment in brief. Sound good? So you're more than welcome to go take a break, and then at 1:32, whatever, we'll come on back. I'm going, and I'll be here just looking for things if you're around.
Professor Amanda,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really sorry to bother you, but for the intro, that's just 1 sentence as well, or that one has to be a little bit more?
Yeah, well, you're not, I mean, for the final outline. For the final outline, it should be about 1 minute. If you look on your page for this week, there is an area for your introduction and for your conclusion. There's 4 things you need in your introduction. An attention getter, you need to provide us with the background information. You then need to provide us the credibility statement, and then your thesis statement. So those 4 things need to be incorporated in some capacity, just setting us up and contextualizing how we're going to get into the speech. Typically it's, what is the need? So if you read through those documents, it'll really tell you a bit more about how to set it up and how to go forward.
Okay, but we're not there yet, right? We're still working on the transition, right?
Transition. Well, I'm kind of done with the transitions per se. In the final outline, and
Oh, okay.
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like, cause the transition is basically like how we're gonna basically continue with our another idea, right? Like in a way, like saying like a sentence that will continue our other idea, right?
Yeah, it tells us what we're going to be like. Oh, now that we told you about this, let's go on to this.
Oh, okay, okay. Now I'm starting to get it a little bit more.
Okay. You may want to, and I mean, again, I don't. Are you driving, Danny? Okay. I'm going to